like to welcome you to another session of our local history shows. We're going to start this one out with a fashion show. Perhaps don't think fashion has much to do with history, but it has had a lot to do with history in the past. However, I'm availing myself an opportunity of a young man from St. Thomas, John Nickelson, who was my guest last year, who was the designer for Oscar De La Renta. And John, I'm very pleased that you're home after just going through another show and taking a couple of weeks off. I think we'll just start out and ask John, give a brief resume of his career from the time he went to the collegiate here in St. Thomas.
Okay, a lot of floundering around and self-searching. I went to Western University and as I said, just sort of floundered around for 2 years. I grew up in a time when much emphasis was placed upon the achieving of a degree, letters behind one's name, which is fine for those that require that sort of background for the existence that they want to eke out, as it were. But after 2 years at Western, I had come to realize that this was not the proper thing for me. I was totally out of place. And while I did enjoy some of the courses I was taking, others just were absolutely meaningless to me. And I was a total disaster. By this time, of course, I knew where my interests were and what I wanted to do. It was going to be clothing. I wanted to design clothes. I had known this for a long time, but it had taken a long time to build up the courage to make that decision and to make the break with traditions, family traditions, and small-town traditions such as St. Thomas. Anyway, the moment came, and I made inquiries and found that the best opportunity for myself at this time, this is 15 years ago, was to go to New York City. And I made inquiries, found some schools, went to New York, was interviewed by various design schools, and at that moment decided which school I wanted and enrolled. So this goes back to September of 1967. I went to New York. I'll never forget the feeling of stepping off the airplane on my own. It was as if the whole world was opening up for me. And at that moment, I felt like I could do anything. I could learn the subway routes of New York City, do all sorts of things which I wouldn't dream of doing now. Anyway, so I was settled in New York and started school. Wonderful school as far as I was concerned, quite small, which was, to my mind, a continuation of the high schooling that I had here. I enjoyed St. Thomas Collegiate because it was a small school, and I could feel in a small school you could build up certain intimacies with various people and various teachers. You felt like there were people around you that could understand. It wasn't something that was impersonal. This I was able to continue on in the small school that I went to in New York. The school was called Traphagen. It's still there. And at the time it was located on Broadway. For anybody who's familiar with New York City, it was the corner of 52nd and Broadway, a few blocks up from Times Square. We were in the top 2 floors of a very old building. It was almost like a garret, an attic. It was old, it was dusty, but it was absolutely cram-packed full of all sorts of wonderful artifacts and paintings and objects of art. And to me, it was exactly what I had been looking forward to. I studied here for 3 years.
Can you tell us what you took there? Now, what kind of things? This is a lot of practical work, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I'm sure it could be interesting, too, for anyone that would be interested in following this sort of a career. The school offered, in the first year, a general art program in that we took all forms of illustration, from illustrating minute details such as a bow, a ruffle. They taught us how to draw details, how to illustrate any idea which may come to your mind, how to put it on paper and to how to convey this idea to somebody else. We took life drawing. We took fashion drawing, which is totally different from life drawing. Life drawing was done from a model. In our life drawing courses, we studied anatomy, and as I said, we drew from a live model. That gives you an understanding of the human figure. After all, clothing is made to clothe the human figure. Fashion drawing takes what you have learned in a life drawing course and exaggerates it for the purpose of illustrating fashion. A life figure is so many heads in proportion in height. A fashion drawing exaggerates that by lengthening out the figure. We took various forms of illustration, watercoloring, for instance, and that sort of thing. Plus, we took some history courses in fashion and costume design and that sort of thing. That was pretty well the first year. At the end of the second year, at the end of the first year, we were made to decide, did we want to go on in fashion design, or did we want to follow a career in fashion illustration? Two different things. In my case, I wanted to go on in actual clothing fashion design. So then I began courses of study in actual clothing construction. The premise behind all of this is that nobody can really teach someone how to design, but they can instill in you the technical knowledge of how to make clothes. Now, as far as teaching somebody how to design, I obviously had my certain ideals, certain designers by this time I had become aware of, and I had formed likes and dislikes of certain types of clothing. I also knew what I myself liked to do. But I had to learn how to make what I wanted to design. So I took various courses in actual clothing construction, sewing, and that sort of thing. I'd never threaded a needle before in my life, and still can't really. But besides that, I also took courses in pattern making, pattern drafting, which is where you work on a flat table and you draft patterns in paper. So with a combination of all of this sort of thing, it gradually comes together to give you an idea of all the technical knowledge that goes into the making of clothes. Plus, at the same time, I still continued classes in illustration, and I must say the school was very good to me because I sort of set some of my own rules as well, and they were most accommodating, to the point of, at the end of my third year, I was granted a scholarship which paid for a fourth-year tuition, which they really hadn't done before, but they made, I was able to go back and avail myself of courses and things which I hadn't done before. And it was, all in all, really a wonderful time in my life. Then, graduation and the hard realities of getting out and finding work. And also realizing that the school, the sheltered existence of a school, had to be totally forgotten, and you almost had to start all over again. Applying for work in the New York garment business, which is the largest garment business in the world. And, but because of that too, where the most opportunities existed. With a little knocking around and a lot of telephoning and pestering of people, and through friends that I had made at the time, my first job was with a furrier. Now this was something that I was totally unprepared for, because one of the things that we didn't really discuss in school or were educated in was the actual making of a fur garment, which is totally different from the making of a cloth garment. However, fortunately for me, the company that I found work with was a very small company. I was put to work under the head pattern maker, who didn't mind stopping every 5 minutes to tell me what I was doing was wrong, and to also to instruct me as the proper way to do it. So I learned a lot in this experience. As I said, it was something new, which has come back to help later on. I worked here for about 8 months, and then times were a little tough for this particular manufacturer, so last hired, first let go. So I experienced my first being fired. And the thing I remember most about that, out of the whole experience, was the fact that the day that this particular gentleman had to let me go, he couldn't look me straight in the eye. He thrust a $100 bill in my palm and wished me good luck and all that sort of thing, and explained how times were and it was tough, and off I was.
Is he still in business?
Oh yes, he's still in business. Has succeeded quite well without my being around. So the whole process again of looking for work started over. I made a portfolio. Again, answered all the ads in the back of the local trade journal, Women's Wear Daily. And after about 2 months, I found work working for, as an assistant, whatever you may call it, for a small sportswear manufacturer on 7th Avenue. Here, I did everything from assist in some designing to going to 8th Avenue to get the thread. I entered orders and I sold in the showroom. Which was very interesting. Again, it acquainted me with a lot of the mechanics of a business. Then, after about 3 months, I had the experience of being fired again, or let go, or my employment terminated. At the time, I had the opportunity to go to Europe, which I had never been to Europe before, and so I figured, well, it was either the job or a trip to Europe. I took the trip to Europe, which was wonderful, of course. So, in a month's time, I was back in New York City and, again, started looking for work. Same process all over again. By this time, I had developed what I felt was quite a wonderful telephone technique, whereas I would call I would just go down the list of every manufacturer and every designer in the telephone book, and I would just simply call. And I had realized by this time that, of course, it was a very sophisticated setup of, first of all, a telephone receptionist, then always a private secretary, and then lastly, the inner sanctum was to be reached. So more often than not, I was, of course, put off. But my stock approach was, this is a personal call for whomever I was calling, i.e., Bill Blass, or in this case, Oscar De La Renta. The day I called Oscar De La Renta, luck was on my side, because, again, it was the same setup of the receptionist and the private secretary, who was Diana. You have met a friend of mine. And, but this particular day, Mr. De La Renta himself, I guess not having too much to do, picked up the phone. Yeah. And as luck would have it, he was looking for a new assistant, so fine, I was in. I went.
I understand that the secretary who would have answered the phone and probably brushed you off eventually, she's a pretty smart secretary, isn't she?
Oh, well, we get calls all the time.
Yeah, and,
people wanting work.
I've met her, and laughing about
yes.
that. It was really a coincidence, wasn't it? That
yes,
she wasn't there and that De La Renta answered the phone himself.
Exactly.
And, then you had an interview with him. And
I went, I sat in the showroom, I had my portfolio prepared, and I think I waited something like 3 hours, which I didn't mind because I didn't have anything else to do. I watched the goings-on in the showroom, people coming in, clients buying clothes and all that sort of thing. And to me, of course, it was fascinating, so I didn't mind waiting at all. Finally, Mr. De La Renta, who had been out all morning, came in, had totally forgotten, looked at me, went in to inquire from Diana what was going on, who this young man was, and then came back out totally apologetic and whatnot, sat down, talked to me for about 5 minutes, and hired me.
He did.
And so I've been there for 9 years since then. And he's yet to explain to me, I mean, we laugh about this all the time, what he really wants me to do. At the time he said, I want you to come and work for me and help me with the collection. And other than sort of those words, it's never been explained to me further what I was supposed to do. We just sort of fitted in and away we went.
Well, he must be a kind of remarkable man. He looks at you for 5 minutes and talks to you for 5 minutes and hires you.
Well,
And he must have assessed your capabilities. How in the world would he have in that 5 minutes?
in a way, it's not that difficult, because I myself have since had to have to conduct interviews from time to time for various reasons. Occasionally, we've had to hire other assistants and that sort of thing. And once in a while, Oscar has asked me to do this for him. You obviously look for somebody who can relate to the type of clothing that you make, in this case what Mr. De La Renta makes, so that it doesn't take too long to assess from whatever someone presents to you in a portfolio form, even to a degree of the appearance of the person themselves. Now, that's not fair to say that you judge everybody by appearances, but you take the whole thing into consideration. So it's not too difficult.
Well, John, tell me something about Oscar De La Renta. He hasn't been in the fashion business really that many years, has he? What kind of a man is he?
Well, he's an incredible man to work for. Let me start by saying that. If I had to sum him up in just one or two phrases, he is the type of man that always makes you think beyond your own capabilities. To say something can't be done is you just don't say that. I mean, when you think that you have exhausted all the possibilities in a certain direction, there'll be a wonderful surprise. We'll sit there and we'll mull things over, and all of a sudden something will come to light. And he's opened my mind to many possibilities. I mean, this goes back to what I think happens to a lot of people when they go to school and they get very set in their little ways, and they think, well, they've got all the answers to the future of the world. And then when you get out and you start to work for other people and with other people, it's wonderful to experience an opening up of your own mind and to learn that you can expand your own capabilities. And I think this is something that Oscar has done for me. And I like to think at the same time that he has come to rely on me too for a certain input and a certain influence. And I think over the time he has. And we get along very well now. Not that we didn't always, but I mean, it's a building of a relationship between various people.
That must be terribly important, because you're in a industry where taste and having an eye for what will sell or what will go, or a new style introduction, this must be a horrendous industry to be in. You know, what we're going to show are the pictures of the fall and winter show. Now, those clothes were all made and shown last May. And the possibility of making a boo-boo, of a line, it has happened sometimes, hasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I think we've all done it in one form or another. It's a very interesting process, but it's something that's very intimate and something that's very close, because you get 2 or 3 people working on, in this case, a collection of clothes. It's something that becomes terribly personal, and something that you're working with 8-10 hours a day. And it's very interesting, because an outsider could simply walk in, and something that you've been working on and laboring over and all the rest of it, and they can take one look at it and simply say, but that doesn't work.
Now, what do you mean that doesn't work? That it be too
To their mind, whatever you've done, if we're talking about a specific outfit, in our case, we make a lot of combinations of fabrics, textures, embroideries, whatever, colors even. And something that we may think is absolutely wonderful, an outsider may walk in and simply say, he doesn't think or she doesn't think that works. And you step back from it for a minute and you evaluate what this person has said, and maybe, just maybe, God forbid, they're right. So,
Well,
you know,
better to find out before you manufacture
that's
them.
true.
Well, John, what's the sort of nature of the day-to-day business of running a design studio and I manufacture?
Well, 4 times a year, we produce a line of clothes or a collection, if that's what you want to call it, for the 4 seasons in the garment business. 4 times a year, buyers from all across the country and from various parts of the world come to the major manufacturing centers in the world, be it New York, Paris, Montreal, wherever, to buy for their respective stores. The 4 seasons are fall and winter, then a very strange season which no one can really decide what to do about, but it exists. People come to buy clothes. It's a season which we have just gotten through called resort or cruise, whatever you want, which is a transition from a fall-winter line into a spring line. Then you have spring, and then you have a summer collection, 4 seasons, which fall various times of the year. And their deadlines, which are set, which means you have to have a line of clothes ready 4 times a year to show. Sometimes it's very easy to put these collections together. Everything just falls into place. One thing leads to another. And you wind up very easily with a collection. Other times it is just very difficult. It happens. You sit there sometimes and you say, you know, what on earth are we going to do? But you have to do something. Now, Ash, the question was, what is the day-to-day business in a design studio? The day-to-day business in a design studio is the actual manufacturing of these various lines of clothes. There is really no set procedure. A collection can be started off, one collection we may start with daytime clothes, just because we happen to have the feeling for it, or we happen to have the fabrics at the moment. Another collection we could start with an evening gown. And so there's no set sort of routine. And the day-to-day business involves fitting what has been put into work previously, liking it, disliking it, changing it, and the adding to what we have previously made. Most collections that we show average around 75 to 125 outfits, ensembles, if that's what you want to call it. The fall and winter collections and the spring collections are always our biggest collections, the strongest, and then the other 2 collections, the resort collections and the summer collections, are smaller. But at a minimum, we make from 75 to 80 pieces, and then for the stronger collections, upwards to 125 pieces.
Well, now, when do you make your decision on, color and the materials?
Well, that happens way in advance, actually. We work 6 to 8 months ahead of every collection now on the buying of our fabrics, deciding on our colors. You have to work that far in advance nowadays to get what you want. And in our case, because of the type of clothes that we make, the type of customer that we have, and the price range that we're in, 75 to 80% of the fabrics that we use are imported fabrics, and most from Italy. And to get delivery on these imported goods, we have to buy 6 to 8 months in advance. We also have to take a gamble and commit this far in advance for a certain amount of yardage. A few years ago, you used to be able to go and just sample. Take 20 yards of this and 20 yards of that. Make your sample collection, show it, see what is selling, take the orders on this, and then from your orders, total up the amount of yardage of this fabric and that fabric, and then order it, and be able to get it in time to meet the manufacturing deadlines to get these clothes into the stores. That's impossible nowadays because of increased demands, labor demands, and that sort of thing. So that nowadays you have to, when you go shopping for fabrics, you also have to commit at that time for 1,000 yards of this, 2,000 yards of that.
Well, tell me, right now you're working on your spring collection, right?
We In September, we will start working on spring 1982,
Yeah.
which we show the 1st of November. And
The 1st of what month?
1st of November.
Wait a minute now. That's this first month.
The 1st of this
That's-
November, we show our spring collection, which will be sold to the stores and be shipped to the stores next February, March, April.
Well, then that means that you now have you gambled on the fabrics.
All the fabrics that we'll be using, we have already purchased, and we have most in the house now. We bought these last May.
Yeah.
So it's good 8 to 9 months in advance.
So you have really an awful lot of capital tied up in fabrics before.
Oh, it's very easy to tie up close to $500,000 in what at that time you think is pretty swell stuff. It does happen that when your fabrics start to come in every now and then, I mean, you may find something comes in and we'll say, "My God, what on earth ever possessed us to buy that?" But in that case, we check the records. First of all, we always check the records to see, did we really buy that? And of course, they're just a signature staring us in the face. So then we check and see, well, just how much of this stuff have we committed for? And I guess we better use it. We own it. All right, now this is just...
Well, tell me, on these fabrics, I know your line of clothes are very expensive. Basically, I would suppose because the materials you use are very expensive. You're using pure...
We use pure fabrics, pure silks, pure woolens, pure cottons. Again, that's because of the price range that we're in and because the customer that we have is, therefore, a woman of means who looks for this sort of thing. I mean, the fashion industry itself is a huge industry, and there are various manufacturers that manufacture clothing for all areas and all income, shall we say. The income that Mr. De La Renta designs for, out of his choice, is a wealthy customer who looks for this sort of thing. So we have to provide it.
Yeah, I think when we're showing some of these pictures, I'll come back and ask you the prices there so we can knock over the people with astonishment. But I want to go back first before we start with a little bit of Oscar De La Renta. Not only does he run the design business, clothing manufacturing, but he also has a lot of other sort of enterprises.
Yes,
and
and this I've seen since I've worked for him. Over the 9 years, our business has expanded greatly. Besides to use sort of an obsolete word, the couture collection, because nowadays there really is no such thing as couture because everything is ready to wear.
Yeah.
Besides this, the main line of very expensive clothes that we do, we have in our own business that we own outright a moderate price line called Miss O, which O standing for Oscar. Which is a more moderate price line, but again, all done in pure fabrics, silks, cottons, and depending on the season, some woolens and that sort of thing. This little line, we design ourselves, the fabrics, the colorations. This little line is manufactured in Hong Kong, and as of this year, some of it will now be manufactured in India. Then beyond that, we license out the name of Oscar De La Renta to various manufacturers who make all sorts of different types of clothing, from beachwear, swimsuits, that sort of thing. We have a line of swimwear for a company called Wavelengths. We do a line of Oscar De La Renta moderate-priced sportswear, sportswear in this case meaning blue jeans, corduroys, that sort of thing, to inexpensive blouses. We also do a line of ladies' coats. We do furs, menswear. All of this comes out of the design studio.
Well, tell me, John, you do the designing of, no, you have somebody making swimsuits.
Mm-hmm. That all comes out of our design studio.
All comes out of your design studio.
Yeah.
My goodness, you're designing an awful lot of.
Sounds like we're busy, doesn't it?
Well, it does, yes, because you're talking about 70 or maybe 100 different combinations of garments. And
well, some of these lines don't have to be that big. Then again, too, for instance, A swimwear line has more seasons than what, for instance, say a coat line would have. A coat line has maybe 2 to 3 seasons a year, the main season in that case being a winter line, with the addition of spring coats nowadays really means rainwear, cottons and that sort of thing. A swimsuit line can have 6 or 7 markets a year. So that each collection of swimwear doesn't have to have 50, 60 swimsuit outfits on it, but it still has to have, there has to be groups and variety. And again, and you take into consideration what is a swimsuit.
Well, not very much from what
nowadays.
I see
No, not too much at all.
Certainly.
So there you have, you're constantly coming up with colorations and prints and that sort of thing, and all that has to be planned well in advance to have that. A fur business, again, is really one season.
Well, no, last time I was talking to you, Oscar was moving into a perfume, not the perfume business.
Cosmetics.
A deodorant for men, or?
We have a very successful cosmetic line now, which, now that's something that we don't really have that much to do with, not necessary to really, because once the actual essence of the perfume has been decided upon, then it's just simply, it's a matter of producing it to meet the demands of the market. This was something that was decided about 5 years ago. A women's cologne was decided upon, the packaging designed and all of that, and then introduced in the market. In our case, it was done on a very controlled basis, and it worked very well. You either hit something that is going to sell or not. And it was a 50-50 chance. In our case, we've been very successful with it. So once that was established, then the line of cosmetics was expanded to include bath products and all that sort of thing. And then 2 years ago, the business was expanded into men's toiletries, with, first of all, the introduction of a men's cologne, which again, luckily, was successful, and will be expanded again as time goes by with increased success into men's cosmetics.
I guess that perfume is, I interviewed a Mr. Milo in Paris. They're still a firm in operation. They showed me all the products they made, you know. I had a little sample here and one here in the summertime, one here. And one of their best sellers is Crepe de Chine and Bois Précieux. But he felt the finest perfume they'd ever made. And, you know, in their estimation, just wouldn't market at all. Just wouldn't market at all. They tried changing the packaging, and
it's like us. Occasionally we make a dress that we think is like God's answer to whatever, and it could drop dead in the showroom. Nobody will want it.
I know, it's amazing. I think maybe we should start. Now, you want to say something about this? The fall and winter collection that was shown last May.
Mm-hmm.
And
these
we've got 25 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to have to hurry with this.
No, the clothes that I have here in slide form, this is an edited version of our fall and winter showings. These clothes, we are now in the process of manufacturing and shipping to the stores now for this coming fall and winter. So we'll just quickly flip through. It'll give you an idea of the sort of thing that we do.
I just might explain. The last time we showed some of these, we had to cut the bottom of the picture off. So what we've done today, George Wominga here in the studio, is the margin you see at the right hand of your screen are the markings of the slides, but at least you're going to see the whole model this time. There's not something wrong with the production here. Okay, John.
Okay. Well, like every collection that we show, we start out with daytime wear. And this is quite obviously a fall and winter costume. In this case, it's a leather coat that's quilted and then bound with fur. It's the same sort of thing as a jacket version, coordinated with a jersey overblouse and a tweed skirt.
How much that whole outfit?
Well, in this case, this jacket, although it doesn't show it here in the picture, is totally lined in fur. And plus you have to pay for you pay for the labor of the stitching and the quilting and all that sort of thing. I would guess probably this outfit, by the time it reaches the store, would retail upwards to $4,000. But you're paying for a totally fur-lined garment,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So more of the same type of thing. I apologize for the bad slide with the.
Well, these slides are taken right in your showroom.
These-
The people
yes.
you see on the right and the left are the buyers from various...
Buyers and press from
Yeah.
all over the country, as I said. Actually, this show was not done in our showroom. We moved to an auditorium, which really showed off the clothes much more to their advantage. It was on a bigger runway. We could seat more people, and it really worked more to our advantage to do this. In this case, we have a printed wool, a tapestry jacquard, which again is treated the same way as the leather costumes we just looked at, as jackets and coats, coordinated over tweed costumes and that sort of thing. This is printed taffeta. Again, it's quilted and lined and edged in fur, shown here with a printed taffeta blouse and a velvet skirt. A rather luxurious way to look. And again, another version, at this time as a jacket. A very sort of country look. In this case, we have the jacket itself is, I mean, it looks very complicated what you're looking at. Essentially, you're looking at a jacket, a blouse, and a skirt. In this case, a suede jacket, embroidered in leather, again with a woolen blouse and a tweed skirt.
What about the belt buckle there?
Well, that's something that we design and add to. Another version, wool and leather, tweed. Here we have a jacket of velvet, embroidered, combined with a printed taffeta blouse and the same woolen fabric that we saw just a minute ago in jackets, this time just done as a skirt. This is a very luxurious mix of textures and whatnot. We even have a fur trimmed shawl with this. We sell the entire outfit as shown. In this case, the buyers have the option of picking up the shawl and the belts.
Well, now, how did that model go?
Very well. I mean, this is a typical example of a very luxurious Oscar De La Renta daytime costume. Here we're combining all sorts of textures. We're combining a woolen jacket with velvet embroidery, a silk taffeta blouse, and a wool tartan plaid skirt. This is a combination of wool and velveteen. We're in a very luxurious mood this fall. Here we have embroidered leather in the jacket, a woolen chalet blouse, and a tweed skirt. Big Bal McCann.
Gee, that looks
tweed
like
coat.
some of the Napoleonic, it almost looked like the kind of soldier's coat, eh?
That coat is, we took, shall we say, right off of Oscar's back. He was in Austria a year ago and bought one of those wonderful Loden Bal McCanns, which they do beautifully over there. We just copied it in tweed.
Now, did that sell, that coat?
No.
They didn't sell it.
It didn't. However, I took this coat and we put it on in our coat division, and we did very well with it. The thing of it is, this type of a coat, we don't have a coat buyer. Anybody that shops in a department store knows that you have a coat division, you have a dress division, and all that sort of thing. We don't really sell to a coat buyer. So a dress buyer coming in can't handle a coat like this, so it dies. But we have a separate division now, a licensing arrangement with a coat manufacturer that sells directly to coat buyers.
I see.
So this model done on the coat line, we were very successful with.
So like the dress buyer didn't buy it, but the coat buyer.
A little tweed suit. This is an English tweed, a Harris tweed.
Well, now, how much would that tweed cost you a yard, that material, roughly?
This fabric, a yard, costs us about $9 a yard.
$9 a yard. That's what, 56 inches, or?
Yes, yeah. In the same tweed, but in a greenish coloration, more versions. A little group of very sharply tailored gray herringbone, slightly menswearish in feeling.
Did that go?
Yes, very well.
They look very trim, don't they?
Yeah, very sleek. A little easier to wear than some of the slightly overproduced numbers we were looking at beforehand. So, I mean, our line is made up of all sorts of elements. I mean, we obviously enjoy the luxury of playing with very elaborate combinations and that sort of thing, but we also make some simpler models and that sort of thing too. But all very reflective of a central theme. Another version of this also illustrates how we put together a collection. This is a little group of 3 costumes done in the same fabrication, just different proportions. Two-piece dress. In this case, it's a jersey overblouse and a striped woolen skirt. The striped fabric.
Kind of an exciting-looking outfit.
Striped fabric in this case used as for the total outfit, an overblouse, and in this case, this is a divided pants skirt.
Now, what's that material in the skirt?
It's a very thin, sheer wool, wool challis, actually. And all it really is, if you strip away the accessories, the belt, and the scarf, and all that sort of thing, you've got a blouse and a skirt. Here we have, this was a case of where we did our own prints with an Italian manufacturer. We had found these prints in a design library, showed them to this particular print manufacturer in Italy, and he did them for us in our own colorations.
Well, now, did they sell?
Yeah.
They have a kind of peasant look about them, those prints almost. They're,
Slightly ethnic, yeah. Uh-huh. Another version.
Oh.
These are dinner clothes, theater clothes. Brightly colored jacquard silk crepe tachines with lace trim and little velvet skirts.
Now, what you're looking at here are the Oscar De La Renta fashions which were shown last May for this fall and winter. And
more of the same sort of thing. A very simple little black velvet dinner dress, trimmed in fur.
now, what's that designed for? Is there a special purpose for that dress? Or
It's a dinner
cocktail
dress.
dinner dress?
Cocktail dress, dinner dress, theater dress.
Now, what does it sell for, probably?
Let's see. Again, you've got a little bit of fur on it, puts the price up. That'd probably be about an $800 or $900 dress.
$900. That's the same with this one?
No, this would be much less because there's no fur on it. This is a combination of velvet and taffeta. Little velvet and taffeta dress. We sell lots of these silly little dresses like that.
What?
We sell lots of these silly little dresses.
Well, yeah, they do look kind of
Yeah.
silly.
Here is an example of some more of our embroideries done on velvet. These embroideries were taken from an Austrian shawl that we bought in Paris a year ago, a beautiful big floral embroidered shawl, and we lifted out the elements of the design and laid it out to fit a jacket pattern. And
We've been lucky with that. You did that with the Turkish design a number of years ago. A little piece of braids you brought back from Turkey,
Yeah,
and it was
a year
the
ago
motif for the whole collection, wasn't it?
Well, that was a year ago, and we just carried right on this a year later with the same idea. Well, it's been a theme with us for over a year and a half.
And the women like that braid design type of thing,
Yeah.
do they?
Well, it's the sort of thing that Oscar De La Renta is known for. In this case, these jackets feature the embroidery pattern, but all over. And these again are dinner costumes, theater costumes. You take the jacket off and you have In the case on the left, a lace blouse and a velvet skirt, and in the case on the right, you have a silk charmeuse blouse with a velvet skirt. The same thing as a fur trim jacket over a long black velvet dress. Metallic embroidery on velvet.
Well, now that jacket is velvet. What's the white material?
The blouse?
Yeah.
In this case, it is a very thin lace, a black lace with gold. Black velvet with gold beaded embroidery, black wool pants. Combination of printed chiffons, slightly gypsyish in feeling.
That's what?
Whoops, slight gypsy feeling. We missed one there.
I like that.
This is pretty, again, it's just a combination. What it is really, it's a blouse and skirt. Combination of prints and textures. Taffeta for the skirt, a printed silk blouse, but loaded down with embroidery.
Well, how many designs, say, of skirt, like different colors, would you have for that?
There were two color combinations of this and this one. Here we have more predominantly blues and lavenders. The others was worked in the warmer colors of yellows and ochres and whatnot. Again, combinations of textures, chiffons and satins. These two dresses are made in the same fabric that the blouse was 2 outfits before.
Now those are all the same color. What?
This is a little group of 3 gowns, all based on the same idea, very lean and sleek, just made in a silk fabric. Black velvet, front and back. Combinations of velvet and silk.
I like those straight black. Did that sell well?
Both of these dresses
Yeah.
very well. Lamés.
Well, that last one looked oriental in a way, didn't it?
This one or this one, they're just actually, they're big caftans.
The big what?
Caftans.
Oh, I see.
Catch up. Something that's very current this season are the big zouave pants, a Moroccan term.
Well, no, what about that?
We sold this, believe it or not.
That's it.
Taffeta gown. Velvet and taffeta. Velvet lace and satin. And another version. This sort of dress we're always very successful with.
Well, now that would be sort of standard.
Yeah, that's a real traditional dress as far as what we're concerned.
Well, how much would that outfit be, that dress, skirt and jacket?
Probably upwards to about $1,600 or $1,700.
$1,600 or $1,700.
This, I don't think it shows up too clearly,
No,
unfortunately.
I must say I like that. How do you manage the sleeves on that one?
Well, it's made in a fabric that, in this case, it's a very heavy silk file, which just stands up on its own.
It does.
Although
You don't have to-
we're
you
not
don't have
above
to.
stuffing them.
No, I'm not stuffing.
Leg mutton sleeves. Combinations of velvet with silk file. All sorts of mishaps can happen. In this case, but it looks like we staged it exactly. During the course of the show, the fuses blew, and all the lights except the spots went up. But in this particular case, because of this dress, which is rather sumptuous, everybody thought we did it for effect. In this case, it's just black velvet with a very heavy encrusted bead embroidery. There's several versions of this.
Well, now, how much would that one sell for?
These, again, would be close to $2,000.
Yeah.
In this case, these are columns of black velvet. The embroidery motifs we took straight out of a Japanese book on kimono designs, and just lifted certain motifs that we liked out and had them embroidered in bugle beading. And of course, every show has a finale.
Yeah. Well, now listen, John. That was the fall and winter showing that was done last May.
Mm-hmm.
And now, have we got how much time have we got, George? Roughly, we're maybe going to have to hurry through. You've just finished another show on the winter cruise. Okay. We have 6
well,
minutes.
without much explanation, these pictures are taken from the collection that we showed just 2 weeks ago. This is that strange season which we call cruise wear. It is a collection which has to sort of answer needs of people that would travel in the holiday season. So we have to provide a lot of clothing which would relate to southern climates, and also party clothes and things for that season of from Thanksgiving through New Year's. In this case, we sort of opened the windows and let in a little fresh air. You're going to see absolutely hardly any embroideries at all and that sort of thing. It's a very fresh approach. Lots of very crisp linens and that sort of thing. These few dresses are coming up are just big, full smocks, almost like a Victorian nightshirt. They're garden party dresses and that sort of thing.
Well, now, just tell me something about those. I sound like I'm always interested in prices. I can never afford to buy these, but what do this kind of line sell for? Now, they don't have that embroidery. They still.
No, these wouldn't be that expensive. Well, that expensive in comparison to some of the very richly embroidered things from fall. These clothes could sell $600-700. I mean, we're essentially looking at a blouse and a skirt.
Yeah.
Okay. So listen, you stop me whenever I see we're limited in time-wise. I mean, if there are any pertinent questions
I like
that
these
you
very much.
They're very clean and fresh looking, I think. Blouse and a skirt, essentially.
Well, now, did this show go well? I mean,
Yeah.
you sold a lot of these.
Well, these clothes, right at this moment, are in our showroom in New York, being sold to buyers.
Yeah.
Combination with printed linen blouse and skirt and a solid white jacket.
Well, now, these are for ship cruises and holidays in the Bahamas. And
Yeah, that sort of thing. Little tiny black suit, linen, combination sort of thing.
Now, what is the material
Linen.
of the
Linen.
jacket?
Lots more pants on this collection, too.
What?
There are a lot more pants in this collection, too. Big, wide, full things. Clothes are very relaxed and easy. Silks.
Well, John, could a lot of people, you could still wear a lot of these things all year round.
Oh,
eh?
sure. I mean, the things that we're looking at right at the moment are silk crepe de chines, blouses and skirts. They have a little bit of eyelet embroidery on them. They're perfect dinner clothes, theater clothes, whatnot, type of thing. The type of thing that a lady could wear to Stratford to relate. Little
Well, that's a
printed
very, very short skirt, isn't it?
Yeah, little tiny dance dress,
Pardon?
little dance dress, short dress. A pajama,
What's that?
pajamas,
Oh, I see.
blouse and pants, meaning. We did give in and do a little bit of embroidery.
Yes,
This is just a reproduction of some of the fall embroideries, but done in black velvet on white piqué.
Looks very nice, doesn't it?
again, more pajamas, chiffon blouses, silk charmeuse pants.
We have 1 minute, John.
I think that
I'm
fairly represented here.
Well, I'm very pleased that was such a successful show and you sold a lot of those garments. Now you go back and you start planning for...
Spring, summer, and in November we're back in the fabric market again, looking for fall, winter 1982 already. So
This November,
yeah.
You're looking for fall and winter next year. In effect.
Never stops.
No. Well, I was going to ask you an embarrassing question that my wife put me up with. I don't really have time to answer it now. Is what advice to a woman with limited means who lives in St. Thomas and wants to look nice? Can you answer that in about 3 seconds?
Okay. First of all, I think that the woman, whomever she is, has to know herself, has to know what her own requirements are. And then I think that she should plan a very simple wardrobe around that sort of thing. She should be able to mix pieces together. You should never outdate your wardrobe. You should always constantly look for something that's going to add to what you've got, and always to fulfill, to answer a need that she may have personally, whatever her lifestyle is. But also she should be very aware of herself.
Okay, we're going to have to wind it up. John, I wish you continued success in the design business. You've been an outstanding success so far, and I wish you and Oscar the very best in all your endeavors.
We'll take that.
And I'd hope that when you come back again, you'll show us your next showing. Thank you very much for watching. Good evening.